Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to your Monday edition of the Post Up with David Grubb right here on Boot Crew Media. I, of course, am your host, David Grubb. Glad you could join me. I hope you had a good weekend. My highlight of the weekend was my Dakar Cougars beating American Heritage High School on Friday night. So shout out to the Cougars for that one. But I get that the rest of the weekend was kind of mixed, certainly with yesterday's results from the Saints. But hey, only 3 weeks away from the start of Pelicans basketball, with the preseason getting closer and closer in the Pelicans trip to Australia. But what we want to talk about today to lead off is that one remaining roster spot, that one spot left. And Joe Dumars has spent most of this offseason adding perimeter players, a lot of combo small forward shooting guard types that can be versatile on the defensive end. But it still feels like there's something that needs to be done with the interior of the Pelicans, that the center position, power forward position are just not deep enough yet. You know, though Derek Queen has a lot of potential, he's a rookie. And at 6'9", with his body needing to develop some more, you wonder how great he's going to be his first year. We still know that Yves Missi is going into his second year and has room to grow. And Kevon Looney is there as a solid veteran for depth. But there is one player still available who we've talked about this summer, and we thought he was gone, but he's still out there. And yesterday he worked out with the New York Knicks, and that player is center Thomas Bryant. And I've been an advocate of Thomas Bryant this offseason and in previous off seasons. If you go look back, I think that Thomas Bryant is the kind of player who could thrive playing with the Pelicans. He gives you the dimensions that you're looking for. He is tall, he is athletic, he is a good perimeter shooter, and he's a solid rebounder. You don't have to ever ask him to start. He didn't start in Indiana last year. You don't have to ask him to play 25, 30 minutes. He didn't do that. He has never really done that in his career. He's been a backup most of the time, whether it was with the Lakers, whether it's been with the Wizards, he's not been a guy that teams have to depend on, but he's been dependable. And at the center position, I think that that's huge. He's 28 years old, so he's still got tread on the tires, plenty of that. He's a year younger than Kevon Looney in that regard. I absolutely think, he is the best free agent big man available, but certainly he's been the best free agent available to the Pelicans for a long time. And, he's played for good winning organizations, whether you talk about the Indianas of the world, where you talk about the Miami Heats of the NBA, those types of teams. He's played a lot of meaningful minutes as well. Now, for the Pacers last season, 7 points, made 52% of his shots, 4 rebounds per game. In the playoffs, 20 games in the playoffs, average 8 minutes, but he put up 3 points and 1.4 rebounds. Again, you're not counting on him to be spectacular. But what you're asking for in a team with limited depth at the center position, one more injury, because Derek Queen's already hurt and waiting for him to recover and see how if he misses any time to start the season. But one injury could devastate this front court. If Yves Missi gets hurt at any time and all you're left with is a 6'9" Kevon Looney in your front court, you're going to be in trouble. Even a Carlo Makovic, we know Carlo's defensive limitations. So you still want some experience. And I don't think that the cost of Thomas Bryant is extraordinary. Him working out with the Knicks doesn't mean that that's who he's going to sign with, because the Knicks don't have a lot of money to make a signing, and they don't really have a spot for him in the rotation. So, people want to see this guy. They thought he was going to go overseas. He still hasn't done that yet. I think he wants to see if there's an NBA opportunity for him. And I think the Pelicans could be that place. And he certainly, as a teammate, as a talent, and as a veteran, could fit into what the Pelicans are trying to build. If they could get Thomas Bryant on a 1-year contract, I think that'd be a huge addition for this team and could really go a step forward in helping them make the playoffs. Another team that the Pelicans, a Pelican player has been mentioned for, and this is by Bill Simmons, who, has been a strong critic of the New Orleans Pelicans at the very least, and has, mentioned New Orleans as a site for a team that potentially could be on the move, all these things negative. But he did say a couple of things this weekend that were positive about the New Orleans Pelicans. And the top among those things was his belief that Trey Murphy should get strong consideration for Team USA in 2028. And I would agree with that. he compared Trey Murphy's ability and the need that he could fill in Team USA very much to Carmelo Anthony. And, I think that there is some comparison there, though Carmelo was obviously a stronger mid-range player and a more physical player in around the bucket. But on the Olympic team, where Carmelo for a long time, for a considerable amount of games, after he stopped playing Olympic basketball, was at one point the person that scored more points than anyone in the history of Team USA and was the leading scorer on more than one Olympic team. So when you look at that and what Trey could bring to the table, he brings a completely different skill set than what you saw with Brandon Ingram, who failed to really adjust to the international game, because Brandon was a guy who's used to having the ball in his hands and being a high usage player. Well, there's not really that in the European game. You've got to move the basketball. You've got to be able to play without the basketball. And Trey is more suited to doing that. He can shoot the long distance shot with a 3-point line that's a little bit closer in the international play. There's more space to operate at different times in the international game. And Trey is also an athlete who excels in the open court, which is another big part. Transition is always a big part of the international game. So there are legitimate reasons to believe that Trey should be in consideration. If he goes along the same curve that he's gone throughout his career, the same kind of growth and development that we've seen out of Trey in his first 4 seasons, then I think definitely you're talking about someone who should be considered. He doesn't have the all NBA recognitions. He doesn't have the all-star teams yet. But you look at a guy like a Derek White and how long it took him to get that. And though he was an alternate on the Olympic team, it was because of his value as a teammate. And I think Trey, who is going to be able to be a lead player in the NBA, can also, as through his experience, know what it is to be a solid secondary player. And I think what happens on an Olympic team is so many of these guys are used to being the star on their teams. They have been the star their entire lives. So when you get to an Olympic situation and you're asked to be a teammate rather than a star, at times it can be a bit difficult to make that adjustment. Trey has always been one of the guys. That's one of the transitions he's had to make in his career, is that Trey was never asked to be the guy at any of his stops. In high school, he was a late bloomer. In college, he go from Rice to Virginia, and he wasn't the number one guy in either one of those places. He was very talented. He was very highly thought of, but he wasn't the number one option in either of those places. He comes into the Pelicans. He's buried in the depth chart and has to work his way up. So he certainly knows what it is to wait for the basketball. He knows what it is to make your own opportunities in this league. And I think that when you have a team, no matter what that team is, you have to have people who can not only excel in a lead role, but can excel in a supporting role. The best actors don't always have to be the lead. Sometimes you can get 10 minutes in a film and you can steal the entire movie. And though I think Trey could start as that kind of player for an Olympic team, be one that steals some minutes and do some good, if he continues along this arc, then he absolutely could be one of the more integral players on a Team USA as it begins to get overhauled in a major way, as all these veteran players age out, either by just the years that they played in the league or just by lack of desire to continue to play for Team USA. At some point, you want to pass it on to the next generation and let them do what they do. And I think Trey will definitely be in that group that gets considered. Now, he will be around 27, 28 when the next Olympics comes around. So we'll see, how many young players come up behind this group. But again, Bill Simmons bringing that to the forefront this weekend. He also talked a little bit about Zion Williamson and Zion's comparison to Chris Webber. And I thought that was a little bit more of a stretch, because I see some similarities between Zion and Chris Webber, 2 guys who can handle the basketball, can pass the basketball, and were effective scorers. Chris Webber at one point scored 27 points per game while playing for the Sacramento Kings, and was a guy who won rebounding titles while he was in Sacramento, was top 5 in rebounding, finished top 10 in MVP votes multiple times. And in the early part of his career, missed a lot of games for multiple reasons, whether it was separated shoulder, whether it was this, that, and the third. He missed a lot of games in the early part of his career. I think the difference, though, is the success for Webber was immediate. He took Golden State to the playoffs as a rookie, missed out on a couple years, and took Washington to the playoffs. The Washington Wizards, at the time they were still the Bullets, but took them to the playoffs. He gets to Sacramento, and they had an extended period of winning with him, where for 4 years he was an All-NBA performer. You've not gotten that yet out of Zion Williamson. And Simmons basically said that for a good considerable stretch, Chris Webber was the second best power forward in the NBA behind only Tim Duncan. Zion certainly could be one of the better players in the league, one of the top 10 players in the league. He absolutely could be. We know that the level of talent. But I think the Webber comparisons are unfair because no matter what, Webber had some basis in winning and leading. And we have just not gotten that yet out of Zion. Could Zion become all of the things that Chris Webber was? Could he be a multiple-time All-NBA player? Could he be a Hall of Famer? Could the back end of his career be better than the front end was? And for Chris, it was a heavy dose of quality play at the beginning, and then he got hurt, and the end of his career was pretty disappointing. But for Zion, it's been the start of his career has been disappointing, and he's always been hurt. If he can flip that, then that's fantastic. But I think that the overall thing here is that you can see that people still have high expectations of Zion Williamson, that they still see his innate greatness within him. The question for Zion will always be, will he tap into it and be able to sustain it for enough time to that he can make a true impact on the NBA? He can either be a historical figure in the NBA or a historical footnote. And this season will go such a long way in determining which one of those he will be. Zion Williamson can be the best player in the NBA. He could be. He has the ability to do that. How much does he want it? How much does his body allow him to do it? And how much can the Pelicans give him to support him in that mission? We shall see. Good news for Pelicans fans. Announced today, there will be more TV options for you as DirecTV will now be carrying the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. The announcement they announced it on Friday, but it really didn't catch any traction. I didn't hear much about it. Saw it over the weekend. But the Pelicans will now be on DirecTV. That means that DirecTV Stream, UVerse subscribers in the 14 markets where the Gulf Coast Entertainment and Sports and Entertainment Network is available will now be able to show the Pelicans games. So there's more access. And we knew that there were a lot of people last season who could not watch the games on Cox, could not watch it with an antenna. Here's another option now, DirecTV. Year 2 of the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network has to be better than year 1. I think it will be better than year 1. The major thing for the Pelicans that I think Pelicans fans are looking for is we're fine with the broadcast. You know, you're not worried about AD and Joel doing their thing. What you're more worried about is, can you get a quality studio show, which really was not the case last season for a number of reasons. I think that Wesley Johnson was just not comfortable. We'll see if he's back this year and if he is more comfortable in that role as an analyst. I think that the set certainly was a little Spartan, and it needs more there to look like a real post-game show, pre-game show. And I think you got to give, if Aaron Summers is going to host it again, I think you got to give Aaron something to do. For a broadcaster, when it's like playing tennis when you have a co-host or a guest or whatever. You're playing tennis and you're hitting it and you hope that they serve it back. Well, a lot of times Aaron was serving the ball and it wasn't coming back. So it's hard for your host when you don't have a kind of a rhythm going with your co-host and with highlights and all those things. It was kind of like pulling teeth at times. So we'll see if those things improve, but it's also really good that more people get to watch the product. When you are still trying to build a loyal fan base, and I think the fan base, and we've said this many times, is bigger than people want to give it credit for. But if you're trying to build that, the best way to do that is letting people sample the product. And the way you do that is by watching the games on TV. Most people can't afford to come to the arena. Most people, only 18,000 people can fit in the arena anyway. And if you've got hundreds of thousands of fans, then the vast majority of them on any given night will be watching that game on TV. And the more people you can get eyeballs in front of, then the more people are engaged, positively or negatively. Some people are going to love what you do. Some people are going to hate what you do, but you need the engagement as a sports team as that fight for eyeballs gets harder and harder. Now, I will say this. Adam Silver said something over the weekend that I think is very damaging for the NBA product, because people have been commenting about the number of sites and apps and networks that are going to be showing NBA games, and whether or not that's too fractured for the average fan. And I think it is. I think you can do too much. I think the NCAA tournament lost a lot when it added so many television partners to broadcast games. Yeah, people want to see their teams play, but you always did. If you were in a region where that team was from, then you got to see your team play. But now you have to go to True TV and CBS and this and that and all these channels to find games where the tension was accentuated by having all the games be on CBS at one time, because you only got the best parts of the games. If the big teams were playing, you stayed with it. But the other games, you got the best parts. It was like red zone for basketball. Whenever the game was close, they switched over. Whenever it was late and it's close, they switched over. And you got to see the best parts of the game. And that's what gave people the tension of March Madness. You haven't seen the kind of buzzer beaters that you were used to in years past for whatever reason, but also the tension isn't there because you can go to any channel and watch the game. There's no sense of urgency. And when Adam Silver says we're a highlights league, that's a problem. If you're saying the only reason to watch this league is on social media or in snippets, then you're saying the artistry, the technical skill, the coaching, all those things are irrelevant. This is simply an entertainment product. And if that's the case, then the NBA is doomed, because the lure of sports is not in the fact that it entertains us simply. It's because, as it's been called plenty of times, this is the greatest sports or the greatest reality show, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if there's going to be tension. You don't know if there's going to be fun. You don't know if it's going to be good or bad. You have no idea when you go into the game how how the outcome is going to be, unless you have two opponents that are just so incredibly mismatched that the defeat or victory seems inevitable. But if you're eliminating that, if you're saying we are a highlight league, that the only thing that matters is the prettiest parts of this game, it's the ugly stuff that makes it good. You know, it's the humanity of it that makes it good. It's the fact that there are crucial turnovers, that people do make mistakes, because that's what gives us the humanity of knowing that the athlete, no matter how exceptional they are, is ultimately just like us. They succeed, they fail, they have to respond to it. We see them, we see ourselves in them. And if it's simply a highlight league, I never get to see the frustrations. I never get to see the joy of excellence when it's unexpected, because it's that quick of a moment. I see the dunk, I see the fist pump, I see the guy run back down court. It's over. No context, no meaning, just highlight. You can get that on 2K. What do I need the NBA for? I can make my own highlights on 2K. You know, so if that's what basketball is becoming, is just a highlight league. I don't want to watch baseball just for home runs. I don't want to watch football just for touchdowns. The drive is part of it. The situations matter. And if all we're doing is highlights, we're doing the game a disservice. One more thing I want to talk about today, and I got something else too at the end, but the other main thing is, as we worry about the win projections for the Pelicans, and we talked about this last week, and my belief that the Pelicans will exceed the wins expectations, but they have been adjusted. BetGM did their new adjusted win totals. The Pelicans adjusted down to 30.5, which is kind of people are still losing faith in the Pelicans. And again, I think that's historic, and it's also the major concerns about injuries. You just don't know who's going to be available. But the one that impacts the Pelicans is that people are getting more bullish on the Milwaukee Bucks. And the Bucks win total has moved up to 43.5. Now, why is that important? The Pelicans and Bucks need to make the playoffs. Okay, for that trade of the first round pick to be less damaging or not damaging at all. They need both of those teams. They need to make the playoffs, and they need the Bucks to make the playoffs. If the Bucks are around 44 wins in the Eastern Conference, they're in. They're in. If you get anywhere near 44 wins in the East this year, you are in the playoffs firmly. So that's a sign of encouragement, because again, Vegas doesn't make money by being really wrong. I think they're really wrong on the Pelicans, though. We'll see. But if the Bucks live up to those expectations and get to 44 wins, that's good news for the New Orleans Pelicans. The last thing is, I was just going through some stuff and looking for some stats just to see if there was something interesting for me to talk about. And this is what I noticed. 3 big areas, right, that you can score. Points in the paint. This is where the league is. Points in the paint, 3-pointers, free throws, right? Those are the areas that everybody needs to score in. Last season, the New Orleans Pelicans were in the bottom 10 in points scored on threes, the percentage of their points scored on threes. They were in the middle of the pack in points in the paint, 13th in points in the paint. In free percentage of points by free throws, they were 14th. When you look at the profiles of the teams that did really well and the years that the Pelicans have done really well, you have to be exceptional at one or both points in the paint or 3-pointers, right? You have to be exceptional at one of those. You either got to score a bunch of points in the paint and be highly accurate if you're not making a bunch of threes, or if you are taking a huge percentage of 3-pointers, if you are doing that, then you better be making those in such a volume that it offsets a lack of interior scoring. Last season, of the top 10 teams in points in the paint, 9 of those made at least the play-in. 9 out of the top 10 in points in the paint, it made at least the play-in. The only team that did not, Toronto. The bottom 10, the teams that were the worst in 3-point percentage, points scored, the Pelicans are right in that group. Of that group, 8 of the 10 made at least the play-in. 6 of those made the playoffs. 7 made the playoffs in points in the paint. 6 made the playoffs in the bottom 10 of percentage of points scored from 3. The Pelicans and Toronto were the only 2 in the bottom 10 of points scored by 3 who did not make either the play-in or the playoffs. The Pelicans historically, with Zion Williamson, have been right around the top 10 in points in the paint. In Willie Green's first year, no Zion, they averaged 48 points per game in the paint. His second year, they win 42 games. That's their high watermark. They finished 9th in the NBA in points in the paint at 53 points per game, just over 53 points per game. The 49-win season, they dipped back down to 50.9. Last year, it was down to 49.9. That shows you the problem right there. The decline in points in the paint. I would say statistically, if you actually look at it, the 42-win team was a better team overall. Though they weren't expected to win as many games, the 42-win team, I think, was a better team in how it played than the 49-win team. The 49-win team had some holes in it that got exposed in the playoffs. 3-point percentage, again, the Pelicans have been horrible in their percentage of points scored from 3. They were 30th in Willie Green's first year. Last year, they were 24th. And when you look at it, the average percentage of points scored from 3 in his 4 seasons is just 30.6. The Pelicans have to up their points in the paint on average by about 4 a game. Because 53, that high watermark they had in 22-23, that would put you firmly in the top 6 in interior points. Number 1 last year was Denver, in points in the paint. Denver was also the worst team in the league when it came to percentage of points scored from 3 because they were so good inside, but also their 3-point accuracy was pretty good as well. So if you're going to be bad at shooting threes, whether it's by scoring them or taking them, then you got to be great on the interior. The other teams in points of the paint, Memphis, great in driving the basketball, playing up tempo. Detroit, not a great 3-point shooting team as far as volume went, but they were top 10 in interior points. The Knicks top 10, the Clippers top 10, Houston top 10, Cleveland top 10. All of those teams also, most of those teams anyway, Memphis was a good defensive team. The Knicks, not so much. Detroit was, the Clippers were, Houston was, Cleveland was. Scoring in the paint means that you're not missing long shots. It means that your opponent is not running out in front of you and getting easy buckets. Scoring points in the paint helps your defense. The Pelicans have to get back to that because even with Zion Williamson, the Pelicans saw a decrease. In the 49-win season where Zion played his most games, it was still down 3 points almost from the year before. For free throw percentage, same thing. The Pelicans have gotten worse in percentage of points scored at the free throw line over the last several years. It started, they were second in the league in percentage of points at the free throw line in Willie Green's first year. Last year, they were 14th. So you're not getting to the line enough. You're not scoring in the paint enough. And you're not making a lot of threes. That's not a good recipe for success. And these problems are not just from 1 year. This is the entire 4 years. The Pelicans have gotten consistently worse at their free throw points scored at the free throw line. From a high of 17 that second year, they're down to 15.1% last year. They are only scoring 32.8% of their points from beyond the three-point line, and just over 32% the last 2 years combined. That's just not good enough. So injuries or no injuries, it's been a consistent problem for the Pelicans year after year. But I would say if they can get back to the kind of offense in particular that they played the first half of the 22-23 season, when they were in the top 5 in the West, when they led the West at one point in December, if that kind of offense comes back, then you can really get excited about what the Pelicans can be. And seeing that kind of performance, and that was out of the gate. That team was scoring points out of the gate. That's what you need to see this year. The numbers show that that's where Willie Green has struggled in making this team excel. That's not a surprise to anybody. That offense has been a problem. But there you see it right there. You're either going to be elite at something and lift the team, or you're going to be mediocre at everything and get mediocre results. Pelicans need to be great at something. And the easiest thing for them to be great at, points in the paint. Points in the paint. Points in the paint. You've got one of the most unique interior scorers in NBA history. You have to take full advantage of that. You've got to get this team cutting off ball. You've got to get people going towards the basket. You've got to get guards that are going to go downhill and take contact and get to the free throw line. That's the goal for the Pelicans. Be relentless in attacking the basket. If you do that, the three-point shots will be there. If you do that, the free throws will be there. If you do that, the defense will improve. The Pelicans cannot play outside in. They have to play inside out. That's the only way for them to be successful. With this roster and with that franchise player. Play inside out, then you'll be successful. All right, that's going to do it on this Monday. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure you leave your comments and questions below, and I will get to them as best I can. You know how to follow me on social media at DM Grub, whether that's on Twitter or Instagram. You can also find me on Blue Sky, TikTok, and Facebook. If you'd like, you can check out thebirdrights.com. Not a lot up right there right now, but we'll get back into it as we get closer to the preseason. And of course, hit the like button and subscribe and share as well. And don't forget the notification bell so you don't miss anything at all. Until the next time, this has been the Post Up on Brew Crew Media. I'm David Grubb. You're you. Have a great afternoon. I'll see you tomorrow.